When you think of laughing gas, what immediately comes to mind?
Usually something straight out of a movie, right?
Exactly. Like maybe it's the Joker unleashing this giant green cloud of sinister giggles over Gotham City in a classic Batman comic. Or,
Steve Martin.
yes, Steve Martin's hilariously sadistic dentist character, Orin Scrivello, taking a massive hit through a plastic mask before working on a terrified patient in Little Shop of Horrors.
Such a classic scene.
It really is. It feels like this classic Hollywood trope, this goofy magical vapor that makes everything hilarious and completely painless. But it's an actual highly accessible chemical, and its biological footprint is, well, it's anything but a joke. Welcome to the Deep Dive Lab.
It is fantastic to be here. And you're so right. The gap between how this substance is portrayed in our pop culture and what it actually does on a cellular level inside our bodies is, it's just staggering once you start looking at the data.
And that is exactly our mission for you today. We are unpacking a massive stack of rigorous medical sources. We're talking deep dives into the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health, the Journal of Clinical Medicine, and the Journal of Psychopharmacology.
Some really heavy hitters.
Absolutely. Our core topic today is nitrous oxide, or N2O. You probably know it simply as laughing gas, or maybe by the street name, whippets.
All right.
We are going to explore how this seemingly harmless party drug, which is also a very common dental anesthetic, actually acts as a stealthy antivitamin inside the human body. We'll look at what that means for our nerves, our brains, and even our DNA.
It's a fascinating journey to take, mainly because nitrous oxide is just so ubiquitous. Most people have encountered it in some form or another, but very few understand the microscopic domino effect it triggers the moment it enters the bloodstream. It's often treated with this casual indifference.
So let's start by grounding this with a little history, because this gas has been floating around our society for a remarkably long time. It was discovered way back in 1772.
Which is wild to think about.
Right. And then, in 1844, an American dentist named Horace Wells popularized it for tooth extractions. But here's the wild part that completely surprised me. Before it was locked down as a strict, regulated medical tool, it was actually used in 19th century laughing gas shows.
Yeah, the parlor tricks.
Exactly. A guy named Gardner Quincy Colton ran these traveling shows. Think of it like a Victorian-era Las Vegas magic act. People would actually pay good money to sit in a theater and watch audience members inhale the gas and just stumble around laughing like maniacs.
It was essentially the 19th century version of viral entertainment. People were watching it for the sheer spectacle, but its applications eventually broadened far beyond those theater shows. The chemical properties of the gas made it incredibly useful for industrial and culinary applications.
We really do see it everywhere today. It's in dental offices, which most of us are familiar with, but it's also the propellant hiding inside those aerosol whipped cream cans at the grocery store.
Yep, the little chargers.
And if you're a fan of the Fast and the Furious franchise, it's the famous NOS that Dominic Toretto uses to boost his car's engine during a high-stakes street race.
Oh, yeah.
So it's literally all around us. But for the people inhaling it recreationally today, what is the actual experience? What's happening in those first few seconds?
Well, when someone inhales nitrous oxide, it's absorbed almost instantly through the lungs and travels straight to the brain. Because it crosses the blood-brain barrier so efficiently, it produces a very quick, usually 1-minute rush of intense euphoria.
Just a minute.
Yeah, it's very fast. Users consistently report a state of heightened consciousness, a strong sense of dissociation from their surroundings, and a physical feeling of floating. It's a massive but very temporary spike in neurological excitement.
That explains the appeal, especially at a party or a music festival. But the brain isn't existing in a vacuum. The whole body has to be responding to this sudden influx of foreign gas.
It absolutely does. And the cardiovascular response is actually quite revealing. There's a fascinating foundational study on this from back in 1980 by a researcher named R. Kawamura and his colleagues.
Okay.
It was published in the journal Anesthesia and Analgesia. They took healthy, untrained volunteers, exposed them to 60% nitrous oxide, and closely monitored their cardiovascular systems.
And what did they find?
What they found was that the gas transiently stimulates the heart and blood vessels. For the first 15 to 30 minutes of exposure, there's a notable increase in heart rate, blood pressure, stroke volume, and overall cardiac output.
So the heart is essentially thrown into overdrive the moment this hits the system.
Briefly, yes. It's a mild, temporary state of excitation. But the really interesting thing the Kawamura study highlighted is how quickly the body attempts to self-correct.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if the exposure continues for a couple of hours, the body adapts. The cardiac output returns to normal during the second hour. So on a macro level, if you're just looking at a heart monitor, the cardiovascular system bounces back pretty quickly.
Wow.
And this rapid return to baseline is a huge reason why the gas has maintained its reputation over the decades as being entirely safe and harmless.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because that cardiovascular bounce back makes it seem like a free ride. But if we look deeper at what's happening to the vitamins in our body, the story gets a lot darker. N2O isn't just harmless air passing through your lungs and giving you a quick buzz. It acts, quite literally, as an antivitamin.
That is the perfect term for it. And it's a concept that's almost entirely missing from the public conversation surrounding harm reduction.
I want to use an analogy to make this mechanism really clear for you listening.
Yeah.
Imagine your body is a high-tech, incredibly complex manufacturing plant, something like Tony Stark's Iron Man lab.
I like that visual.
Right, so everything is running smoothly, assembly lines are moving, parts are being built, and the master engineer keeping this entire operation online is vitamin B12.
The guy pulling all the levers.
Exactly. When you inhale nitrous oxide, you're not just floating for a minute. That gas acts like a targeted EMP, an electromagnetic pulse, that drops right into the lab and specifically knocks that master engineer completely offline.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it. To get into the actual mechanics of that EMP effect, we can look at a brilliant 2022 paper by Jade Shi and Theodore A. Alston. They are researchers from Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard Medical School.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was published in the Journal of Oral and Maxillofacial Anesthesia. They broke down exactly how this antivitamin action works at the molecular level, and it is a remarkably aggressive chemical process.
I remember reading that paper, and the vulnerability seems to come down to a specific metal hiding inside the vitamin.
Precisely. Vitamin B12 is scientifically known as cobalamin. It gets that name because at its absolute center, it holds a single cobalt atom. In its active, healthy state within your body's enzymes, that cobalt atom is highly reactive. When nitrous oxide enters the system, a violent chemical redox reaction occurs. The nitrous oxide specifically targets and attacks that cobalt atom, oxidizing it.
Just so we're all on the same page, oxidation in this context is essentially rusting the core of the vitamin from the inside out.
You can absolutely think of it as rusting. It fundamentally changes the chemical structure, and this oxidation generates highly destructive molecules called hydroxyl radicals.
Which doesn't sound good.
It's not. These radicals behave like microscopic shrapnel. They chemically attack both the B12 cofactor itself and the protein chain of a vital enzyme called methionine synthase. The N2O completely and irreparably damages this enzyme.
Irreparably. So it can't be fixed.
No, it cannot be patched up. Your body literally has to build brand new enzyme molecules from scratch to recover from the hit.
Which means we need to talk about this master engineer. If methionine synthase is taking the brunt of this damage, what does it actually do in the Tony Stark lab of our bodies? What assembly lines are shutting down?
It's responsible for some of the most critical foundational maintenance work in your biology. It keeps the methionine cycle running. That cycle provides the essential chemical building blocks for synthesizing DNA, RNA, and crucial proteins.
Wow. So everything.
Basically. It's also responsible for creating myelin, which is the protective sheath wrapped around your nerves. When nitrous oxide takes out vitamin B12, and by extension methionine synthase, that entire biological assembly line grinds to a devastating halt.
Yep, which brings us to a concept that's honestly the most terrifying part of this whole deep dive, especially for anyone using this stuff medically or recreationally. It's a phenomenon called functional deficiency. There's a 2021 study by Joseph Farmer and his colleagues in BJ Psych Advances that lays out just how deceptive this can be.
The diagnostic blind spot. It is incredibly frustrating for medical professionals and patients alike.
Think about this scenario for a second. You go to the doctor because you're feeling strange. Maybe you have some numbness or tingling after using nitrous oxide. The doctor does what any logical professional would do and runs a standard blood test to check your vitamin B12 levels.
Right.
But according to Farmer's paper, that test will very likely come back completely normal. It might even show you have abnormally high levels of B12.
Which naturally leads both the doctor and the patient to confidently cross B12 off the list of potential problems.
Yeah.
They look for other causes.
But thanks to the N2O, that B12 showing up on the blood test is essentially a zombie. It's physically present in the bloodstream, so the laboratory test counts it, but it's functionally dead. It can't do its job. It's a worker asleep at the desk. To
Exactly.
see the real damage, Farmer's paper highlights that doctors have to look past the standard B12 test. They have to specifically test your blood for compounds called homocysteine or methylmalonic acid. Because that master engineer, methionine synthase, is offline, those specific compounds aren't being processed. They just pile up like uncollected garbage in the factory.
What's fascinating here is how this microscopic biochemical traffic jam, this piling up of cellular garbage, translates into a very modern, very visible public health crisis. We're currently witnessing a massive recreational epidemic. It's moving out of the shadows.
We're definitely not just talking about a few people doing parlor tricks or a handful of folks at a weekend music festival anymore. The scale of this has changed dramatically.
It really has. There was an incredibly revealing 2019 individual patient data meta-analysis by Abdurrahim Usala and a team of international colleagues. It was published in the Journal of Clinical Medicine.
And what do they find?
They gathered data on 100 patients suffering from severe nitrous oxide toxicity. They found that 76% of these patients were regular N2O users. And of those regular users, a staggering 73.7% were using it purely recreationally.
That is a massive shift.
It is a definitive shift. It used to be an occupational hazard, maybe a dentist breathing in a little extra ambient gas over a 30-year career. Now it's young people inhaling massive, highly concentrated doses on a Saturday night.
And the neurological fallout from those massive doses is devastating to read about. The clinical term they use in the literature is subacute combined degeneration of the spinal cord.
It is a profound, often debilitating injury to the central nervous system. To give you a sense of the sheer scale of what hospitals are dealing with, we can look at a massive 2023 case series led by Devin Mayer and colleagues at Barts Health NHS Trust.
Okay.
This was published in the Journal of Neurology, Neurosurgery, and Psychiatry. They analyzed 119 hospital patients in the UK who came in specifically with nitrous oxide-induced nerve damage.
119 patients just in their network.
Yeah.
And the symptoms these young people are presenting with are terrifying. Over 80% of those patients suffered from paresthesia. For anyone who hasn't experienced that, it's this severe, relentless tingling, burning, and numbness. It primarily starts in the legs and hands.
Yes.
They also presented with unsteady gaits, literally unable to walk a straight line or keep their balance, and profound muscle weakness.
And all of that physical trauma goes directly back to the zombie B12 and that halted assembly line we talked about earlier. The body simply can't maintain its infrastructure.
Let's bring back a visual for you listening to really hammer this home. We mentioned that vitamin B12 and that master enzyme are responsible for creating myelin.
Right.
Think of myelin as the thick, protective rubber coating on your iPhone charging cable. Inside that rubber are the delicate microscopic wires transmitting electricity. Heavy N2O use stops your body from producing that rubber coating. As you keep living your life, moving around, your body's natural wear and tear actively strips the remaining rubber off the cable.
Leaving the delicate nerves completely exposed to the elements of your own body.
Eventually, the wires are totally bare. They start to short out. The electrical signals from your brain misfire, or they simply don't reach your legs at all. That's why these young patients in the Maris study are ending up falling over, unable to climb stairs, or in the worst cases, completely bound to wheelchairs. Their internal wiring has been stripped bare.
This raises an incredibly important question about dosage and safety. If N2O is used safely in dental offices around the world every single day, where is the line? How does a trusted medical tool become a myelin-stripping poison?
That is the million-dollar question for anyone trying to navigate this. If you're sitting in a dentist chair, you're getting a carefully calibrated mixture of nitrous oxide and oxygen, and you're being heavily monitored by a trained professional who controls the flow. But inhaling from a party balloon in a parking lot is a totally different beast.
It absolutely is. And the math on this is deeply concerning once you lay it out. There's a 2022 research paper by Jan van Amsterdam and Wim van den Brink, published in the Journal of Psychopharmacology, that puts the recreational dosage into a terrifying perspective.
This was the absolute wow fact for me in all our research. The sheer volume of gas involved in recreational use is hard to wrap your head around.
In a strict medical setting, health and safety agencies have meticulously calculated the absolute maximum amount of ambient nitrous oxide. A dental worker or an anesthesiologist can safely breathe in over an 8-hour shift without suffering long-term harm.
Right, the occupational limit.
Exactly. That occupational limit is roughly 72 milligrams of N2O per day. Now, compare that to a modern recreational user. Inhaling just one single party balloon, which is typically filled from one small culinary whippet canister, delivers about 8 grams of nitrous oxide.
Let that sink in. 8 full grams in one breath.
Yes. That means one single balloon delivers roughly 100 times the maximum allowed daily occupational dose for medical professionals.
One balloon is 100 times the safe daily limit for a worker. And we know from the case studies from the hospital admissions that heavy users aren't just doing one balloon and calling it a night. They're doing dozens, sometimes hundreds of these in a single sitting.
They're essentially flooding their bodies with an industrial load of a targeted antivitamin. And what Van Amsterdam and Van den Brink's research highlights is a terrifying secondary blind spot for these users, the reproductive risks.
Because it's not just the nervous system that desperately relies on vitamin B12 and that methionine cycle.
Correct. Remember that B12 and the folate cycle are absolutely required for synthesizing new DNA and RNA. Any rapid cell proliferation depends entirely on it. Historically, before we had modern high-tech ventilation systems in clinics, dental workers and midwives who are constantly exposed to high ambient levels of N2O faced heavily documented occupational hazards.
What kind of hazards?
Female workers in these fields experienced significantly reduced fertility and faced much higher rates of spontaneous abortion. The N2O was actively disrupting the earliest, most fragile stages of embryonic development.
Because you simply can't build a new life. You can't divide cells without DNA synthesis. The assembly line is broken.
Precisely. Now, fast forward to today's recreational scene. You have users blasting themselves with exponentially higher doses of this gas, often on a weekly basis, entirely unaware that they might be severely compromising their reproductive health or risking catastrophic complications if they are pregnant or trying to conceive.
And we have to remind you, looking at all this data, that not everyone has the same biological armor. It's not an equal playing field. Some people are walking around with genetic mutations, like the MTHFR deficiency.
Which is very common.
Yeah. For those who might not know, MTHFR is a gene that helps your body process folate. If you have a mutation there, your body is already struggling to manage these essential vitamins. Or think about people with poor nutrition, like strict vegans who don't supplement their diet, who already have a baseline of very low vitamin B12.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, those specific individuals are highly vulnerable. For them, a few balloons at a party isn't just a brief, harmless high. It's playing biological Russian roulette. Their B12 reserves are already so fragile, so close to the edge, that the N2O EMP completely wipes out their system almost immediately. They don't have the buffer that someone with perfect nutrition might have.
It is wild to think that something you can legally buy at a culinary supply store or order online in bulk can do this much microscopic damage so quickly. We've covered a lot of heavy biochemistry today, so let's summarize the key takeaways we really want you to walk away with.
I think the first and most critical point is understanding the mechanism itself. Nitrous oxide isn't just a benign gas that makes you dizzy for a minute. It acts as a powerful antivitamin that permanently deactivates vitamin B12 in your body. It actively shuts down the cellular machinery that maintains your nervous system and synthesizes your DNA.
The second massive takeaway, the recreational epidemic is real.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly dangerous. Abuse has skyrocketed, leading to severe, sometimes irreversible nerve damage, that iPhone cable stripping effect we talked about, and potential reproductive harm. And that's simply because the sheer dose in a single-party balloon is massive, over 100 times the safe occupational limit. It's an industrial dose masquerading as a party favor.
And the third key message is about the deception of medical detection. Standard medical tests can be incredibly misleading. You can have completely normal or even high vitamin B12 blood levels, but still be suffering from a dangerous functional deficiency. Doctors have to know to look deeper, testing for homocysteine or methylmalonic acid to see the actual cellular garbage left in the wake of the N2O.
Those 3 points really reframe the entire conversation around laughing gas. It's not a joke anymore.
If we look at this through a wider lens, it reveals a serious hazard unique to our modern era of information overload. There's a massive, dangerous disconnect between a substance's harmless public reputation and its actual microscopic biological impact. Nitrous oxide is legal, it's cheap, and it makes people laugh, so society automatically assumes it's safe.
Right.
But true harm reduction requires us to look past the euphoria. We have to understand the actual mechanics of our own bodies and respect the delicate, invisible chemical balance that keeps us walking, thinking, and reproducing.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you for listening and stepping into the Deep Dive Lab with us today. If you enjoyed this journey into the science hiding behind the headlines, please subscribe to the channel. We love taking these deep dives with you, and there's so much more to explore.
It is always a pleasure to unpack these complexities and find the hidden connections.
Before we go, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. If a perfectly legal, easily accessible gas used to whip our dessert cream can secretly rewrite our nerve function and stall our DNA synthesis, what other harmless everyday chemicals might be quietly hacking our biology right under our noses? Keep questioning, keep learning, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.